Hello and welcome to the Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely, and with me today is Stefan Karganovic. It's a welcome return. He's been with the Gaggle a few times in the past, and he's, of course, the head of the Srebrenica Research Project and generally an expert on all things Serbian. And there's really a lot to talk about. There seems to be quite dramatic developments taking place both in the Republika Srpska and in Serbia. It seems like in both places we're reaching a crisis. So let's start discussing first events in Republika Srpska, and then we'll go on to Serbia. So we've covered the Republika Srpska crisis here in a number of occasions at the Gaggle, and in particular, the latest development, which is the removal of Milorad Dodik as the president of the Republika Srpska. And now, apparently, there's going to be an election held to appoint a new president, even though the elected president has simply been removed by a legal fiat. And Dodik is threatening to hold a referendum. So, Stefan, just fill us in. What happened? Why has Milorad Dodik been removed as the legal elected president of the Republika Srpska?
Hello, George and viewers. He has been removed for disobeying the orders of Bosnia's colonial governor, Christian Schwarz, who is.
Schmidt.
I'm sorry, Schmidt. Oh, terribly sorry.
Schwarz was the guy he was before him, yeah.
He's such a nondescript person that I even forgot his actual name. But his presumed function, of course, he is not recognized as such in the Republic of Srpska, is as the High Representative in Bosnia and Herzegovina. It is an office that was formally established by the Dayton Peace Agreement that was signed in 1995. However, the Dayton Agreement provided for a one-year duration for that office, and the only power that was actually explicitly granted to the High Representative was to interpret the Dayton Agreement, the terms of the peace accords that were signed by all the parties, in case they could not see eye to eye on a particular clause of the agreement. And then, presumably after a year, he would pack up and leave. It's been 30 years already, and the High Representative is still there. Different individuals have been in that position. Right now, we have this character that you, concerning whose surname you just corrected me. And he has, in the meantime, been granted by a self-appointed group of countries, mostly Western countries, actually right now entirely Western countries, because Russia, which was initially invited to take part in these activities in the 90s, when it was notoriously weak and helpless, has pulled out. So now we have, I think, 11 or 12 collective West countries that form.
Sorry to interrupt. Could you just explain how was it that after Dayton, it's signed in 1995,
Yes.
and then suddenly in 1997, there's this entity that comes into being called the Peace Implementation Council that was
That's
not
right.
envisaged by Dayton. It wasn't created by the UN Security Council. It's a self-appointed group of countries, and they began this overseeing the implementation of Dayton.
Yes.
How did that come about? How do you get the self-appointed group of countries?
Well, for an answer to that question, I guess mentally we have to go back to the 1990s. when major Western powers were riding high. They could not be effectively contradicted by anyone. It was a unipolar world, and they simply got together and formed this Peace Implementation Council. And then on top of it, on top of the audacity that it took to even form such an organization that had no official standing whatsoever, they got together in 1997 in Bonn, Germany. They had a meeting and they decided that the powers of the High Representative were too limited, and they drastically expanded those powers to include writing and imposing legislation, dismissing public officials who were democratically elected, or as democratically as anyone can be elected in the Balkans. Technically, they were democratically elected, and so on and so forth. So the actual role of the High Representative from that point on differed very little from the role of a British colonial governor in Kenya or Zambia or wherever. And local authorities in Bosnia and Herzegovina, which consists of two entities, the Republic of Srpska and the Muslim Croat Federation, had to obey his directives, because if they didn't, they would be punished. It is all a bluff, because the Peace Implementation Council has absolutely no standing in international law. It is obeyed because the local authorities in Bosnia and Herzegovina are too cowardly to put their foot down and say, no, we are not going to follow your directives any longer. And on top of that, just to give a little background, which I think is very pertinent here, the current High Representative, who is supposed to be approved by the Security Council of the United Nations, never was approved, never went through the procedure that his predecessors all went through, because it is only speculation, but I think it is a reasonable hypothesis. There was fear that Russia would veto his appointment. So it was never presented to the Security Council. He was simply declared to be the High Representative, and he flew into Sarajevo and started playing the role that he was assigned. That was about 4 or 5 years ago. Now, 3 years ago, he decreed a change in the penal code of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Now, if you can picture that, Bosnia and Herzegovina is a member of the United Nations. It is theoretically a sovereign country. So here is this guy who comes out of nowhere, no credentials, even the formal credentials that his predecessors had, in the sense of being approved by the UN Security Council, and he says, you have to insert a section in your criminal code which says that disobeying the directives of the High Representative is a criminal act, punishable by law. Well, that was inserted in Bosnia's criminal code with little or no protest on the Muslim Croat side, but it aroused a huge protest on the Serbian side. And the parliament of the Republic of Srpska, which is the other entity in the country, passed a law which says that the directives of the High Representative will not be enforced in the Republic of Srpska if they have no basis in the Dayton Peace Accords, which pretty much wiped out that inserted section of the criminal code it meant that the legal authorities in the Republic of Srpska would ignore it. Now, the next step is for a law that's passed in parliament to become effective, the chief of state has to sign it, well, like in many other countries. And Dodik did not hesitate to sign the law, even though the High Representative warned him explicitly not to do that. Well, that is the root cause of the legal proceedings that were subsequently started against Dodik. They've been going on for about nearly 2 years. And the upshot of it is that Bosnia's state court in Sarajevo, which, by the way, also has no standing in the Dayton Peace Accords. It was created ex nihilo by a previous High Representative, because Bosnia was set up in Dayton as a loose confederation. It had very few central organs. The political action was in the entities, not in Sarajevo, the capital. So Dodik was charged in this court. He probably made a mistake going there to be judged, because
why did he do that? Why did he go and recognize this court? Why did he take part in the legal proceeding?
You're asking a very rational question, which should not be put to me. It should be put to Milorad Dodik, because for years he had been arguing correctly from a legal standpoint that this court, as well as many other imposed structures, had no basis in the Dayton Peace Accords, and therefore were illegal and should not be obeyed or paid any attention to. And then suddenly, when he is indicted in that court and the legal case starts against him, he shows up. So what does that mean? It means that, as you pointed out, that you recognize that court. So there is a big problem there for Dodik. Yeah. He walked into a trap. He didn't have good political or legal advice. I think that we can say that very confidently. So at the end of this trial, which had circus-like elements, he was found guilty, surprise, and he was sentenced to 1 year in prison for breaking the law that was illegally imposed by the High Representative. And for 6 years, he was denied the right to participate in political life or to run for political office in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And then on top of that, after this judgment had been issued by the court, he had the option, like everybody else, if you're sentenced to 1 year in prison or less, you can pay your way out. I think it costs about 17 or 18,000 euros. So he goes and pays this amount, which again is a gesture of recognition of this court. So now what is left is that, number one, oh yes, and then within the next 2 or 3 weeks, he went through an appellate procedure. Again, his appeals were denied by the appellate court, and the sentence became legally effective. So the Electoral Commission issued a decree which was technically within the law. I mean, if you assume that everything that went on before was legal, then the order of the Electoral Commission that Dodik's mandate had ceased and that he was expected to vacate the post of president of the Republic of Srpska is totally legal, technically legal. So now this is where we are.
Right.
Dodik now has changed his mind again. Now he doesn't recognize all these imposed structures. And he has stated that he's going to organize two referenda. One for the people of the Republic of Srpska to say whether or not they agree with the sentence of the court of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and after that to be followed by another referendum whether or not they want to secede from Bosnia and Herzegovina. And just to refresh everybody's memory,
sorry, just so could you what's the first referendum? You said there's the first referendum
whether the people support his ouster as president of the Republic of Srpska. Okay. And the second referendum is on the issue of secession that he has been alluding to and sometimes talking about for a number of years, but never actually did anything about. So now we have a problem in the sense that Bosnian law mandates that within 90 days of the post of president becoming vacant, an election has to be held for a new president to be elected. So that was his sentence was upheld, I think, about 10 days ago. So that would mean within about 70 or 80 days, they have to call an election for another individual because Dodik cannot run to be elected as president of the Republic of Srpska. Dodik, at the same time, is threatening to hold his referenda. And the big question is, how is he going to do it? Because technically, he's no longer president.
So now this is very interesting. Is he president at the moment or not?
Well, it depends on your point of view.
Well, I mean, does he exercise the president's powers? I mean, does he have the powers that the president normally has?
Technically, he does not. Technically, he is a private individual.
So who's the president of the Republic of Srpska at the moment?
No, there is no president. That post is supposed to be filled after the snap election is held within about 70 or 80 days. Right now, there is no president. From the standpoint of the quote unquote international community and those who adhere to its interpretation of the rules. But of course, if you talk to the man on the street in the Republic of Srpska, you're going to find very few people who are going to support that, even those who detest Dodik politically, because this is actually disguised as an attack on an individual, but in reality, it is an attack on the Republic of Srpska. And the purpose of it all is to elect a pliable individual like Pashinyan or somebody like that, who is going to follow the collective West agenda. And the two main points of that agenda are lifting the Republic of Srpska veto on Bosnia's NATO membership. That's very important. Bosnia cannot become a NATO member as long as that veto is in effect. And that has to be lifted in Banja Luka, in the capital of the Republic of Srpska. So they need to have their man there to do it.
So, but first, can an election be held? I mean, is it physically possible to hold an election if it's boycotted? If say,
yes,
boycott the election? Okay.
Yes, it's a very good question, but the answer is yes, for the very simple reason that Bosnia's electoral law does not provide for a minimum of people who have to vote for an election to be considered valid. They are going to find their Pashinyan in Bosnia without any problem. And if only he and his family vote for him and everybody else boycotts, he's going to be the next president of the Republic of Srpska. So that's the reality of it. the law has been in existence for a long time. It was not tailored to the present circumstances, but it's there. And it works in favor of those who want to put their candidate in the presidential office in the Republic of Srpska. So that's NATO is one issue of major importance. The other major issue is the centralization of Bosnia and Herzegovina. They have been working on that for decades. They want to get rid of the loose confederation model that was enshrined in the Dayton Agreement because it's too much trouble having to deal with local chieftains, and Dodik has turned out to be a very inconvenient one. If you have all the levers of power centralized in Sarajevo and you control Sarajevo, then you're in charge, and you can steer the country any way you want. So that is a very, very important point that they are interested in, and Dodik has been resisting the change in the constitutional structure that would simply deprive the Republic of Srpska of its autonomous status, to which it is entitled under the Dayton Agreement.
So in effect, what you're saying is that with this maneuver, the Republic of Srpska could just be liquidated. I mean,
absolutely, yes. The answer is yes, much as we may regret it and may not like it. And the irony of it is that it's all technically legal. If you accept the legal premises on which these proceedings were based, the conclusion is perfectly legal. No color revolution, such as they attempted in the Republic of Srpska about 10 years ago. It was all done in the corridors of power. And we have to admit that they have succeeded. And I don't see any possibility of a successful effort to overturn what they have done.
Well,
because the correlation of forces favors the collective West.
Well, in the early 1990s, which is now more than 30 years ago, that led to war. But now you're saying there's not going to be a war this time.
I doubt it. Of course, I'm not in Bosnia right now or in the Republic of Srpska, but I have many contacts there, many friends, and they all tell me that the people are tired of conflict. No one is interested in having a war. The most that can happen, and probably will happen, is that when they conduct their election for the new president of the Republic of Srpska, the overwhelming majority of Serbian voters will stay at home. But as I explained, that will not thwart their project.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about this referendum that Dodik is threatening, that the referendum on secession? Can he arrange such a referendum?
I don't think so, for the very simple reason that he no longer has the levers of power in his hands. I just want to remind you that on the very day that his sentence became final, that all the appeals were denied, his prime minister, Bišković, resigned. Bišković was regarded as a close friend and ally of Dodik, but apparently he did some calculating, and he concluded that it would be safer for him to put a distance between himself and Dodik. So what do you think lower level officials are going to do? They all know that they cannot go against NATO, and still has troops in Bosnia, and the quote unquote international community. They can all be indicted and put on trial, like Dodik, for disobeying a legal order, quote unquote, which includes the disputed section of the criminal code that was inserted by the High Representative, uh, based on which Dodik was ousted from office. So that means that any one of them can be put on trial and made to suffer the repercussions of disobedience. And knowing the way people in the Balkans reason, they usually go along with whoever they judge has the power. So I don't anticipate that in the long run he's going to have very many active supporters left. You need an apparatus to organize a referendum, and he simply is not going to have it.
Now, you've been quite critical of Dodik in the past, as have I. I mean, Dodik has threatened many, many times to hold a referendum
Yes,
on secession, but he never did so. You
yes,
know,
he
it's
never.
like he missed the opportunity. But
It was
now,
it
as you
was all
say,
words.
it's too late.
Well, now that he doesn't have the effective power to organize such a referendum, he's saying that he's going to have it. How? I don't see any way that he can pull it off. But when he actually had the apparatus state of the state in under his control and could have done it, he didn't.
Yes.
Again, it's a question for Dodik, not for me.
Well, one question that arises is that he's banned for 6 years. If he comes back in 6 years' time, would that already be too late by then? Could he change? Could anything change within six
In
years?
6 years, if things are, if the direction in which things are going is not changed, there will not be a Republic of Srpska in any recognizable form for him to run for office in. So it is irrelevant what he's going to do in 6 years. And I might point out, I'm not, by saying this, I'm not being critical of Dodik, I'm simply making a factual observation. In the Balkans, as well as in many other parts of the world, rulers are not known for grooming their successors or for tolerating people of comparable stature to be around them because they see them as competitors. So Dodik doesn't have anybody of any stature or commanding any respect around him. He cannot, well, theoretically he could, but he doesn't have anyone that he can recommend to the voters of the Republic of Srpska to continue his policies. So that, again, is an ideal situation for those who engineered this legal coup to make sure that their man succeeds.
So, I mean, the way you describe it, this was a very well organized coup, a maneuver to oust Dodik. I mean, that was
Yes,
the that was it. You know, from what Christian Schmidt did, and then now you're saying that you could have an election, two people show up for this election, and that's enough to have
that's
a
enough.
legally elected president of the Republic of Srpska, and therefore enough to begin the process of liquidating the Republic of
Yes,
Srpska.
yes, exactly. And of course, it was carefully prepared, but it probably would not have worked as successfully as it did without Dodik's ignorant cooperation and assistance. He walked into the trap. He didn't have good advice, or he didn't listen to people who gave him good advice. Again, very typical of the Balkans. And as a result, this is where we are.
All right, let's segue now into events in neighboring Serbia,
Yes.
where we've been having these protests really since last November, Just to remind viewers, there was the concrete canopy that had been rebuilt in Novi Sad railway station. It collapsed, killed 15 people, and since
16.
November,
Yes.
sorry.
16.
16.
Yes.
Okay, 16. Yeah,
Yes.
16
Yes.
people. And since November, there have been these protests demanding. It's not very hard to understand exactly what they are demanding. But these protests are really it's an ongoing thing in Serbia because before that there were
Yes.
protests about the Rio Tinto
Yes.
investment. Before that, there were protests about mass shootings. And somehow there's always a kind of a renter crowd in Serbia mobilized against the President Alexander Vucic. So, can you explain what is it? What is this about? Is this a color revolution? I mean, that's what people are saying. Is this basically a color revolution to affect political change in Serbia?
Well, there is definitely an intention in the collective West to effect political change. But that doesn't, in and of itself, necessarily qualify as a color revolution. A color revolution is usually organized to topple an opponent of the collective West, somebody who is uh, conducting policies that are detrimental to the West's agenda. That is not the case in Serbia, because not only has the current president been brought to power and installed in office with the full support of the collective West, he has been fulfilling their agenda very faithfully for the last 10 or 12 years. What I believe happened is that they decided it's time for house cleaning, not to change the system because the system suits the West perfectly, but to change the regime or to change the face, the public face of the regime. And I want to remind you that in Serbia there is a group of politicians who are overtly aligned with the Western agenda. They're not simulating uh, friendship with Russia or nationalism or anything like that. They are very overtly aligned with the Western agenda, and they are waiting to replace the individual who is currently in power. Uh, I think that was the original intention. And for the last 2 or 3 years, a very slow moving regime change operation has been in progress to put pressure on the president to do the remaining things that he has been putting off, that he hasn't done yet, and then to send a group of ambassadors to his office and to tell him, well, like with Djukanovic in Montenegro. They were not unhappy with Djukanovic, but they realized that he could no longer hold the system together and that they needed a new face. That's the situation in Serbia, or it was the situation until this tragedy happened in Novi Sad. So if the tragedy had not occurred, I think that there would have been pressure on the current regime to do the remaining things that it was expected to do, and then at a certain point it would be replaced by a new crew, which is waiting, fully expecting to take over. Uh, but the canopy collapse upset the apple cart in many ways because it provoked a strong reaction from the public, which until then has been largely lethargic and not really part of the political process. Most Serbs simply were apathetic. But this really hit the nerve. And the students were the first to organize. And for a number of months, they demonstrated practically on a daily basis, demanding, first of all, that all the information about the reconstruction of the railway station be made public. Who was in charge, how much it cost, who benefited financially from these engineering works, and to prosecute people who may have violated professional or ethical standards. Now, the point of view of the opponents of the regime is that these violations of professional and ethical standards occurred at the highest levels, and that therefore the regime was very reluctant to honestly share all the information about this tragedy because it would lead to the upper echelons of the government.
But haven't a lot of the documents, haven't they already been published, and people have been arrested?
No, they have not been published. Absolutely not. Some lower level individuals have been arrested and then a few days later were released and put under house arrest or released on what we would call in America on bail, awaiting trial, and there is no trial in sight. So it is all a charade. Some gestures have been made to placate the public, but in reality, no one has been held accountable for that tragedy.
Didn't the prime minister resign? There was, the Serbian prime minister resigned.
Yes, he did resign, but he did not resign because of that. He resigned because of an incident in the city of Novi Sad, where a student was seriously injured, a girl, and it provoked enormous outrage, and the decision was made that the best course for the regime would be for him to resign, and he did. But he is still the head of the ruling party. It's by no means out of the political process.
Right now, Vucic, he's up. He can't run again. There are term limits, so he can't run again
unless he changes the constitution, which he has mentioned that he might try to do. And technically, he might be able to pull it off because he has an absolute majority in the parliament. So if he changed the constitution, obviously he could run again. The other danger is that he would cancel the section of the constitution that says that Kosovo is an inalienable part of Serbia, which would again open the way to finalizing the turning over of Kosovo to the separatists.
Now, as far as one can tell, I mean, there are all these protests, and then clearly, you have to believe that the Sorosites are thoroughly embedded within Serbian society. They've been there for many, many years.
They are. No, absolutely.
Yeah, this is the Sorosites.
However, and not just the Sorosites. Yeah, that's absolutely true.
But as far as the Western governments is concerned, they haven't really said very much. There haven't been the usual hysteria, that Vucic, he has got to, call off his his mob against non-violent protesters. These are non-violent, and the government is using violence. The usual stuff. We're familiar with this Western propaganda line. We haven't heard that in the case of Serbia.
Yes, no, that's quite true. I just want to point out that the Serbian president is very close friends with Soros' son, who's also named Alexander,
Mhm.
who's actually now in charge of the Soros organization. The old man has largely retired. Alexander Soros is frequently in Serbia and has access to the top levels of the government. Uh, on that showing, at least, it doesn't seem that there is a hostile relationship between the Soros organization and the current Serbian regime. Uh, yes, they of course they are embedded within Serbian society. Uh, we can only speculate what the ultimate objectives are that they have. They have many levers of power and influence within Serbia. Uh, you're quite right.
But what's really interesting here is if they remove Vucic and he's replaced by one of those characters, we remember them in the immediate post Milosevic era. We had Boris Tadic and Vuk Jeremic, and
Not
all
not,
this.
not necessarily those individuals,
Yes,
but
exactly. They're obviously a younger version of them.
exactly, exactly.
But
Yeah,
they were not successful. They really were not successful as far as the West was concerned. They failed because they didn't get them to persuade the Serbian public to abandon Kosovo. They didn't get the Serbian public to distance themselves from Russia. So it wouldn't do them any good to replace Vucic with some younger version of Boris Tadic.
uh, probably not. But don't forget that there are uh, more people than just Tadic and his coterie in Serbia in political life, and they are all on the payroll of USAID and Soros and similar outfits, and they are all eager to come to power. Uh, I cannot speak for the decision makers in the collective West, uh, whom they are going to pick, and how much that individual or group of people can do for them. Uh, but right now, there is a big problem that they are facing that the students who are not under their control have stirred things up. People have lost their fear of the government and they have suddenly become very interested in politics because they see that politics directly affects their lives. There is a third factor present that is very, very problematic from their point of view, from the point of view of both the regime and the collective West, and they don't really know how to handle it or what to do about it. I don't think personally that the students are a serious political option. They're too young. Uh, can you imagine ministers in their 20s running a country? In a part of the world as complicated as the Balkans. They have no political experience. They do not really have a political agenda. It started out as a movement of moral indignation against what happened in Novi Sad, where 16 innocent people lost their lives because the malfeasance and the negligence of the authorities without any accounting, without anybody being called to, to account for what happened. So that it was an event I would call it similar to what happened in Tunisia if you remember, when a fruit seller's cart was overturned by by the corrupt police who were trying to extract a bribe from the fruit seller, and he refused. And this just led to a spontaneous uh, protest uh, against the government, which ultimately resulted in the ouster of the president, Bourguiba, who had been there, or his successor, who had been there for 10 or 15 years in office. So these things can happen spontaneously without any planning. And when they do happen, they have to be taken into account politically. They can be very troublesome. And the student movement right now is such a troublesome factor. I do not think that they are going to prevail in terms of changing either the government, much less the system, but they are there. And the other actors have to plan their moves around them. I think that ultimately, present regime has outlived its usefulness, especially after 9 months of street protests, which have paralyzed it. It cannot really deliver on many of the things that remaining things that are expected of it to deliver.
So when
Uh,
you say outlive their usefulness to whom? To the West?
that's right, of course. Yes. They cannot deliver anymore. Uh, the regime is fighting for its political existence. The president is fighting for his political life. He obviously cannot sign off on the separation of Kosovo. He cannot make any changes toward Serbia joining NATO. He cannot approve openly the Rio Tinto incursion into Serbia and lithium mining that a lot of people have become aware of as a health danger. Uh, so he cannot do the major things that are expected. Uh, as a result, the collective West has to look for somebody else to replace him. But there is a movement on the streets of people who are conscious of their political rights and who are uh, uh, determined to change the system in the country. They don't know how to change. They don't
Right,
have a plan, but they want to change.
but historical experience suggests that when you have a kind of inchoate movement like this, young people, very inexperienced, um, and have no real agenda, no real ideas, and very just very unsophisticated. They will be manipulated by much more sophisticated actors. I mean, they will be just they're going to be used as cannon fodder for serious political players.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. That can happen, or they can simply be ignored. And with all the resources that the collective West has in Serbia, they can put together a team to replace the current regime. And when they manage to do that, they will simply tell them to pack up and leave and give them a golden parachute. Goodbye, like Djukanovic in Montenegro.
Right. Who do you see anyone on the horizon? Whom do you think the West would pick on to replace Vucic?
No, I don't. I cannot speculate. I don't see, just as in the Republic of Srpska, there is no prominent individual that they might bank on. But that doesn't mean that they won't come up with something. It might be a Serb from abroad who will be launched and presented as a savior. That has worked before.
Yes, the they did try that during the 90s. Um,
Yes,
uh,
you remember the individual.
Yeah, I remember him well. They just sort of, they really was just transported, and he suddenly became president of Serbia. So yeah.
Yes.
Um, um, well, but the problem, whoever follows Vučić will have the same problem that Vučić had, which is the Serb people, they will not let go of Kosovo. I mean, that's the problem, and they just will not do it. You
It
know,
is an
they didn't do it for
intractable
Tadic,
problem.
and they didn't do it for Vučić. So the West is going to have the same problem.
It will have the same problem, but they are hoping that perhaps by coming up with some charismatic individual, uh, giving him some economic aid that might temporarily improve the lot of the people, that he might be able to swing it, to pull it off. I don't see that happening, but I think that is the hope in the West. They have to settle the Kosovo problem, among other things.
Right, right.
Excuse
But
me. Can we stop for just a minute? I have to help my mother
yes,
to.
yes, absolutely. Okay, so we're back now. Well, I mean that's a very pessimistic and very bleak view. But to be honest,
But I think it's realistic.
I think so too, and I think it's
There
been
will
very
be
bleak.
another Western uh, team taking over in Serbia. The students will be sidelined. There will be another wave of disappointment. These young people are highly idealistic, highly moral, and they are the hope of Serbia. And if they uh, give up on their social engagement, if they are disappointed and conclude that there is really nothing that can be done to change Serbia's appalling political and social system, um, most of them will opt to go abroad. Serbia will be left without its educated class, its brains, uh, and it's going to be uh, a country cheap labor force, and not a little more than that. It will be the death of Serbia. But I see no other alternative at the present time. I wish that something else would happen, but I don't see realistically how that would happen.
No, and particularly, I mean, I guess looking at it from the outside, this movement by the students just doesn't seem very impressive.
It is
It's
impressive
just these
if you
it's
look at it
continuing
in
protests
Serbia.
without any without clear direction. I mean, it's just protest after protest after protest. That only makes them seem not a serious political movement.
That is correct from the point of view of a politically sophisticated observer from the West, from outside of Serbia. But when you consider that a year ago the country was politically dead, and that now hundreds of thousands of people are out on the street daily, demonstrating, demanding things that it would not have occurred to them to demand relatively short time ago, there is a lot of movement. The political scene is very animated, and by Serbia's standards, what they're doing is of tremendous importance in terms of lifting up the spirit of the people. But without clear political leadership, a clear agenda, clear goals, all that will be wasted and nothing will come of it.
And this is not Otpor.
It's not what?
It's not Otpor.
I'm
Ot
sorry.
Otpor, the Otpor movement of
Oh,
the
Otpor.
90s.
Oh, no, 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 no. It has
This isn't
nothing.
Otpor.
Yes, nothing to do with Otpor.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess on that, quasi sort of optimistic, pessimistic note. So thank you so much, Stefan. Really very interesting.
Quasi pessimistic.
Yeah, I'm more pessimistic than optimistic, but
Yeah,
that's you have at least faith in the young people. That's very touching.
absolutely. Yeah,
So thank you, Stefan, for this very interesting and fascinating discussion about Republika Srpska and Serbia. We will continue to watch, and we hope to have you back again very soon. Thank you, Stefan,
thank,
and
thank
talk
you
to you
very
soon.
much for
Thank you.
inviting me, and
Thank you.
all the best, George.